Yes, good evening, Felix. Hope you can hear me. Felix, how are you? I hope you can hear me. Felix, can you hear me? Felix, can you hear me? Hello. Felix, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can get you.
Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah, I think we should continue. Let's continue. Um, because Sheila said she was having connectivity issues, but now the link is okay. If you can get me, then she's supposed to join. Um, yeah, so they went to look at literature and philosophy. Um, last time it was introductory. It was the introductory phase of the unit. But this particular week we want to look at literature and philosophy. Yeah, so philosophy from the foundational inquiries of Socrates and Plato provides the abstract logical framework. So basically, philosophy is very abstract. It has a lot of thinking to do. It has the conceptual blueprints for understanding ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology, or the study of knowledge. For example, it asks what is justice, but literature in turn takes these abstract frameworks and subjects them to the crucible of human experience. So literature tries to actualize, yeah, what philosophy tries to come up with. While basically, as we have said, philosophy is very abstract. It deals with abstract concepts. Literature tries to actualize these concepts. It asks, what does justice look like? Yeah. So literature tries to find out exactly, yeah, to actualize what justice is, to actualize what cruelty is, to actualize uh, what um, what reason is, and all that. So this session will examine these symbiotic dynamics, exploring how great literature, whether a novel, a poem, a play, or oral literature, functions as a laboratory for philosophical thought. Yeah. So we are trying to say that literature actualizes aspects of philosophy. And so there is a great nexus between philosophy and literature. We cannot, in fact, most of the theoretical frameworks are philosophical. Most of the theoretical frameworks in literature are philosophical. So writers become applied philosophers using narrative and metaphor to test the limits of logic and theory. So we are saying that most literary works, yeah, they have canons underlying them. They have philosophies underlying them. And sometimes philosophy is also used in the creation of knowledge in literature. Actually, in the modern age, philosophy is the center. Philosophy is the center of knowledge. So actually, there is no field of knowledge that can get established and grow without having a strong foundation in philosophy, and literature is one of them. So let's look at the ELOs. We'll try to analyze classical understanding of literature. So we'll look at classical philosophers and what they said about literature, and then examine Aristotle's concept of catharsis and formalize structure. So Aristotle came up with a number of tenets on plot and also on catharsis. So we will examine that and then articulate Longinus' concept of the sublime. So there's a philosopher called Longinus who came up with very important concepts. So of course, in this virtual class, I cannot talk about all of them. Once you go to the portal, like Sheila can now access the portal. We are still looking for admission number for Felix and Ruth. I asked someone yesterday, and she said she will give me an answer. I'm sure by tomorrow we will know. But Sheila, you can now access content on the portal because I think Sheila actually got admitted very early. She was the first, and that was last semester. But even Felix, very soon I know you'll get the admission number, registration number, so don't worry. And then we'll be able to evaluate how contemporary critical thinkers such as Nietzsche, Hegel, Immanuel Kant, Freud, and others utilize and critique classical ideas, challenging established notions of textual authority. So we look at people like Sigmund Freud, we will look at people like Immanuel Kant and Nietzsche to see what they theorized about literature. So for this foundation, because we are still in the foundation, it's important for us to know what theorists say about literature. And as I've said, these theories actually, these theorists or these thinkers lay the foundation for theoretical frameworks. You cannot write a proposal without a theoretical framework. So this is just part of the appetizer, part of the preamble for theory, because next semester you'll have a full course called theory of literature, theory of literature. So let's look at Plato. This is the image of Plato. This is the image of Plato. He is very much respected as one of the fathers of Western civilization, as one of the fathers of Western civilization. And Plato had a number of things to say about literature. Some of them were nasty, some of them were nasty, and but others were very constructive. But most of what Plato said about literature he was very critical of literature. In fact, he was very dismissive of literature. But it's good for us to reflect. Yeah, we'll reflect on his words and see whether he had some substance. So for Plato, he came up with one of the tenets called mimesis. Yeah. So according to Plato, literature is imitation of an imitation. Yeah. That basically what we see around, according to Plato, what we see around is an imitation. Mm? Everything we see, all creation is imitation. For Plato, the reality is in the ideal. The reality is in the ideal, as in the reality is God Himself. I think that's what he's trying to say. Yeah, that the reality is the spiritual, but everything we see around us is an imitation of the spiritual. And because literature imitates creation or imitates the creatures, therefore literature is an imitation of an imitation. I hope you are getting what he's trying to say. Yeah. According to him, when you see a cow, that is just an imitation of the real cow in the spiritual. When you see a human being, a human being is just an imitation of the real person in the spirit. But literature now imitates a human being, like drama. Drama is about imitating, imitating people, And so he therefore concluded that literature is an imitation of an imitation. It's a double imitation, So because it is a double imitation, according to Plato, literature tries removed from the truth. Yeah, it is 3 times alienated from reality. So he argues that because poetry, or literature is so far removed from genuine reality, it cannot offer true knowledge. So according to Plato, literature cannot express knowledge, yeah, because it's an imitation of an imitation, yeah. It is an imitation of an imitation. So he dismissed literature, yeah, that if we have to create knowledge, then we cannot use literature to create knowledge because it's just a bunch of imitations. It is a bunch of imitations. Then number two, epistemological objections. So Plato condemned literary writers for not possessing true knowledge, episteme, yeah, that they could not have true knowledge of the subjects they write about, because all they're writing about is just imitations. So a literary artist can successfully write about military strategy or medicine or governance without actually being a general or a doctor or a leader. That because the literary writers, they like fantasy. They like fantasy. They cannot actually create true knowledge because they can write about something they are not. And so, according to Plato, these people cannot produce true knowledge. So, since the literary artist speaks from inspiration or divine madness, which he calls mania, rather than rational understanding, the finished work lacks intellectual authority. So, according to Plato, a literary artist is a mad person. And madness, according to him, this is someone who relies on spirits. Yeah, according to Plato, an artist is inspired by a god, by a spirit, to write what they write. And so, according to Plato, this is a mania. This is mania. And so, a mad person cannot therefore teach the audience a true knowledge. Cannot teach the audience true knowledge. That is number two. Then number three, ethical and moral objections. This was actually his strongest tenet. Yeah. So according to Plato, um, literary artists, yeah, they present heroes in the negative. That sometimes you find people like Oedipus, people like Oedipus, not Sophocles, for example, talking about a king who married his mother and killed the father. And so when heroes are presented in the negative, then they become bad role models to society. That such works are full of passions, and these excessive passions are dangerous to young minds. Are dangerous to young minds. So he says that literature and poetry generally encourages vices rather than virtues in the society. Rather than virtues the society. So he believed literature was a danger to the ideal state, yeah, that literature was a threat to the government, and therefore he proposed what we call censorship. So Plato actually proposed censorship for all works of art because they encourage vices in the society. That literature appeals to the lower soul. That's number four. Plato argued that poetry, especially and drama, literature, especially drama. When he says poetry, he's talking about drama. Is literature. He says poetry is talking about literature. So he says that literature, especially drama, appeals to the lower or irrational part of the soul, which is appetitive and it is a spirited part. So rather than higher and rational part. So literature appeals to the what? To the emotions. That's what he's saying rather than the mind, rather than the mind. And so, because of this lamentation and hysteria, it brings unchecked emotion. And therefore, literature encourages the intelligence of feelings rather than reason. Rather than reason. So, this emotional intelligence, according to him, disrupts the harmonious balance of the soul, which is essential for achieving justice and wisdom. So, according to Plato, a literary artist does not encourage reason, but precipitates emotions, activates emotions, which is dangerous to the mind. And at the end of the day, literature does not build any emotional, any rational faculty, but it tends to work on the emotions, emotions of the audience, and therefore runs counter to reason, reason. Yeah. So then another tenet is the exclusion from the ideal state. So given these objections, Plato famously concludes in the Republic that most forms of imitative poetry, especially Homeric epics and tragedy, must be banned or strictly censored, yeah, in the state. So the government must choose philosophers, people who use reason to censor works of art, because works of art, they do what? They precipitate emotions, and therefore, when they build, they work on people's emotions. They are dangerous. They are dangerous to the society. Especially, it talks about hysteria. That when we dance so much, it's just hysteria, and at the end of the day, we are likely to promote vices. So he permits only hymns to the gods and praises of good men, only songs to the gods. That's maybe gospel music, religious music, um, and and the praises to good men, arguing that that's the only function of literature in the society. Literature should therefore be in state house there. We should sing some songs there for the president, and then gospel or religious music. Otherwise, all other forms of literature are a danger, to society, So that is Plato. And in fact, his theory is called Plato's theory of of moral criticism. Plato's theory of moral criticism. This is the theory which is used by most governments to censor works of art. It was established by Plato around 450 BC. Plato was a teacher to Aristotle. He was Aristotle's teacher. Yes. Now, maybe before we proceed, let me hear what you let me hear your opinion. What do you think? Yeah. Let me see what you think about Plato's submission. At least each one of you to take some 2 minutes to comment. What do you think of Plato's theory of moral criticism? What do you think of Plato's theory of moral criticism? Yes, who is the first one to go? Sheila, are you there? Do you support Plato? Do you support Plato?
Yes, I'm here.
What do
I
you
do
yes.
not. Okay. I don't support him.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Speak your mind.
Okay. Uh-huh. Like for
That it
instance,
appeals to the lower soul. Literature appeals to the lower soul. It's an enemy of reason. That it promotes vices rather than virtues in the society. He talks about lying, grieving, hysteria. Again, when heroes are represented in the negative, heroes like Othello, heroes like Oedipus the king, they are presented in the negative. It is a bad example to the young minds. Then literature is imitation of imitation, and therefore it is thrice removed from truth. Mhm. Continue, Sheila.
okay. First of all, from the point of it supports vital, I
Mm.
don't think okay, that is not true because from the literary work we read, uh, most of them they don't support vital. Like the good deeds are rewarded in the literary
Speak
work.
up, speak up.
So I
We cannot
disagree.
hear you. Speak up.
I'm saying that
Mm.
in those literary works, uh, like the the books you've read, I think the good deeds are usually rewarded in some of the books.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I disagree with him when he says that it supports vices.
Mhm. Not all works of
Those
art.
the vices are yes, not all works of art support vices because those works of art in some works of art vices are are punished and then good deeds are rewarded.
Just
And
even pick a
then,
book, just pick a book like Blossoms of Savannah. You see bad people like Oloxidori being punished, yeah,
yeah,
being punished, and good people like Resian being saved. So why should literature really be an avenue that promotes vices, as he says? And even at the end, Plato used to support governments, and at the end, actually, it's the government that killed him. Yeah. So
yeah.
sometimes, even as a philosopher or as a thinker, you don't need to support everything the authorities say. You don't need to. Like now, I'm very critical of what the authorities are trying to do, what they are saying about Prophet David Owor. Actually, I don't support what they are saying because the doctors are there in those crusades to prove that the miracles are not false. So basically, I don't see anything wrong that Prophet Owor is doing, and he has been doing it. He hates fake miracles, and that's why he comes with doctors to prove that his miracles are not fake. So personally, I don't just support everything that authorities say. Just like Plato. Plato was really pro-authorities. And at the end of his life, he was actually forced to drink poison. And he died. So we need to have a critical mind. Felix?
So I had another point, sir.
Okay, continue.
Where he says that it appeals to emotions rather than the mind, or it encourages indulgence of feelings and
Mm,
not the mind. Let me use the same book on of the blossoms of the savannah. I think it does not just okay, literary works don't just work on the feeling. It gets the readers also thinking.
mhm.
Yeah, it also involves the mind. It does not just indulge the emotions of people. It it can it like I said, it gets people thinking. It makes people be creative. For example, even these ones that talk about the government, the things that
Mm,
are happening in the government.
mm.
I think those ones but they when they talk of the things that are happening in the government, I think it even helps the readers who are citizens to get to maybe understand what the leaders are doing and even see the bad things the leaders are doing. Yeah, and so I think it doesn't just indulge the emotions.
Yes. They challenge us to reflect, to reflect on governance. Yeah. Like if you read a book like The Biffons are not yet born, by Aikwe Ama, you reflect a lot about the Nkrumah regime in Ghana. You reflect a lot about the Nkrumah regime in Ghana. Um, and so, like Black Rain, for example, you look at Black Rain, you reflect on the effects of the atomic bomb, and so on. So it's not just about emotions. We also think and reflect on it. Yes, okay. Felix?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Speak up, speak up.
Yes, so looking at Plato's angle of that is yes, we have to respect him was a great philosopher up to date, but his reaction towards literature, and I want to believe he was responding to the literature, the literary scholars of that time, like William Shakespeare, Abraham Sophocles, because those were the writers by then, and they were also great thinkers. And from what the little knowledge we have is that he was supporting the government. Let us now look at the first aspect, him talking about literature uh, provoking emotions. I will build on what that is what Shell have just said. To me, literature is not provoking emotion because literature is most. I will say that literature is a reflection of the actual life of human beings and what people are doing in the society. if we talk of Abraham so-called Oedipus the king, human beings are subjected to fate, something we have to accept. And any human being, because I'm talking about that is Oedipus the king, that is Oedipus. He was a hero, yes, but there's fate in life. One may start life as a very, successful person, but fate takes you to the other side. Something we have to appreciate and accept that is how the nature is. And literature, that is what Abraham Socrates captured in his work. If you look at the governance of that is the current government we have got dictatorship and the rest. That is what one will capture, but using a different type of language. Poetry, may sound to be emotional, yes, but what is it communicating? Like a poem which is based on governance, a political poem. It may sound so sad, it may provoke people's emotions, people may even cry when listening to it. But at the end of the day, what is the main theme? It was addressing about the bad governance we have in a particular society. If we come to plays, if we look at all the works of Henry Gibson, we look at it's just again talking about emotions, yes, but
You are
it is
breaking.
capturing the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm breaking it.
Are you through?
I was also struggling to get. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I hope you're getting me. My network issue today is.
Yeah, today your network is weaker.
I have a problem with the network today.
Yeah, but we have
Yes.
gotten your point.
I'm in my workstation.
That is not just about emotions. If you look at Ibsen, An Enemy of the People, and other works that Ibsen has written, even Shakespeare, much as literature touches emotions, those emotions carry us towards a message, and it enables us to reflect on the message, on the subjects in the work. So Plato had a lot of things. It was just like, I think it was a relationship between him and Aristotle was just like the relationship between Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. The mentor-mentee, they were mentor-mentee, but the mentee was not happy with what the mentor was trying to come up with. And we will see what Aristotle will say. So Plato's theory was criticized. For example, critics argue that he fails to recognize the autonomy and unique function of art. By judging literature solely on its ability to convey philosophical truth, he ignores its central purpose to create an aesthetic experience and interpret reality, not merely to duplicate it. So literature interprets reality. It does not just duplicate it. The writer has an argument. He has an argument. And that's why in some universities, you can even write a novel. In some universities, you can write a novel as a master's thesis. Why? Because a writer has an argument. A writer participates in existing conversations. In existing conversations. Literature is not just about stories. Literature is based on certain canons. And that's why great writers will base their works on canons, and they end up writing literature that can always be recognized. Look at a novel like God Dies by the Nile. God Dies by the Nile by Nawal El-Saadawi. It is based on important theories like feminism, Marxism, and psychoanalysis. So a great writer has a certain canon or a philosophy or an argument they want to put across. So it's not just about emotions. And that was very simplistic of Plato. Number two, the claim that mimesis is thrice removed from truth is overly literal. Great literature imitates universal patterns of human experience and moral dilemmas. It does not just imitate. It's not just copying. You're not just copying what people do. It's not just imitation. you imitate universal patterns. And by universal patterns, we are talking about moral truths. We are talking about philosophies. Yeah. Yeah. They can be philosophies. You're talking about feminism. You're talking about modernism and its disadvantages. We are talking about a democracy, yeah, and its weaknesses in an enemy of the people. So it imitates universal patterns. And here we are talking about philosophies and canons. Literature does not just imitate, it's not just to copy what people do. Then the psychological objection regarding the corruption of the soul by passion is challenged by Aristotelian concept of catharsis. So look at Aristotle. Aristotle talks about, in fact, um, when you cry, yeah, he's saying that literature has a cathartic effect because it's therapeutic. Yeah, the more you watch horror films, the more you purge out fear. You purge out fear from your heart. If you are a coward, you are supposed to watch horror movies. According to Aristotle, horror and tragedy has a cathartic effect. It purges out emotions of pity and fear. So it is not just emotional corruption. In fact, it heals. So Plato's desire to censor literature to fit a prescribed ethical framework limits art's necessity, its role, art's role as a social critique. We are social critics, and so should not be limited by censorship. We should not be limited by censorship. Literature as a social critic should be allowed. We look at a novel like Secrets, you may really say this writer is very immoral, or a man of the people, a man of the people. You may say this writer is very immoral, but if you look at what is happening in a man of the people, it is just a reflection of what happens in most universities in the world. So literature is a social critique, and if you look at the mirror and your face is dirty, just proceed to wash your face. Do not break the mirror. The mirror is not the problem. The problem is your face, which has to be washed. So the whole question of censorship is also it's also short-sighted in a way. There's a time there's somebody who criticized Secrets, and he says Nordin Farah's Secrets is a very dirty book. But I realized it's because the person who was saying that lacked the literary competence to interpret the book. Secrets is based on speculative fiction and magical realism. So unless you understand that theory of magical realism, you will not get the message in Secrets. And so because you look at the book from the surface, you will start condemning even a man of the people. If you don't know that the lexical deviation, yeah, is used by the writer to suggest that this is an immoral society, yeah, looking at the book from the surface level, you will condemn it, yeah. So and that's the simplistic nature of Plato's theory. He looks at things from a very outward view. Maybe he was a scientist, yeah, but the humanities also need their own experts to understand exactly what they are saying. Then we come to Aristotle. So Aristotle was the student of Plato. Where is this picture? This is the picture of Aristotle. Yeah, this is the picture of Aristotle. Let me just correct that spelling. So Aristotle was a mentee to Plato. And the first tenet is catharsis, that catharsis is the purpose of tragedy. Yeah, that tragedy, purges out feelings of fear and pity. That when people watch tragedies, it is not a danger to the young minds. That when the young minds watch horror movies, what will happen is that it purges out, yeah, feelings of pity and fear. And so the question of Plato's corruption of the soul and the emotions, therefore, does not have to arise. And again, he also tried to suggest that for you to know a wrong movie, you also need to watch a bad one. So that sometimes you need experience to watch those bad things. It's also good that when you watch a bad thing, you will now distinguish, yeah, what is bad and what is good. You're gonna just say, "Oh, that is bad, that is sin," but you have never really experienced it. For example, there's somebody who said the best parent to advise someone, the best person to advise someone against drinking is a person who has ever suffered the demerits of drinking. Yeah, that is the best person. That's why when we get people who have reformed, we can take them out to talk about drug abuse, to talk about like the best person to advise about the demerits of HIV/AIDS is a person who is suffering from it. Yeah, that is the best person. Yeah, because they have the experience of what HIV/AIDS is. So experience is the best teacher. So catharsis, yeah, catharsis. Number two, yeah, poetry versus history. So according to Aristotle, there is a difference between poetry and history. He asserts that poetry is more philosophical and serious than history. Yeah. So he says that history relates to what happened or the facts, but poetry relates to what may happen. Yeah. It's predictive. Yeah. It is predictive. Yeah. So the poet is concerned with universal human nature and action, universal human nature and action, making literature superior vehicle than history. That because this person theorizes about the universal nature of the human condition and what may happen, yeah, he is more superior, more intelligent than this person who just reports what has happened. And basically, history is just a report of what has happened, and there is no much reflection and intelligence there. But the poet or the literary scholar is more concerned about what may happen, is more predictive, yeah, and is concerned about human nature and action. He goes deeper. So literature has more depth. And so according to Plato, in fact, historical novels have more weight, yeah, than other sources of history, which just state the facts. That is Aristotle. Then he talked about the tragic hero. Who is the tragic hero? He's somebody who is good, consistent, probable, but most importantly, occupy a powerful position. This is somebody who has virtues, but mostly they have a weakness, and this weakness brings them down. The tragic hero has a weakness which we are able to see, but they cannot see. And it's this weakness that brings them down. People like Oedipus, yeah, people like Othello, people like Okonkwo, people like Wayaki, and these people give us a lot of lessons. According to Aristotle, they give us a lot of lessons. And he also talked about the structure of plot. You'll read that online. Once you go to the portal, you see what he talked about plot and drama. So he theorized a lot about drama and plot. Then let's look at some contemporary philosophers. We'll look at about three of them. And one is Immanuel Kant. You need to know Immanuel Kant. That's the picture of Immanuel Kant. So according to Kant, his work or his theories his tenets are derived from his theory written in the Critique of Judgment 1790. You will go and read. And the first one is that the disinterested satisfaction or quality, yeah, that the quality is a marker of a literary work, and the reader finds satisfaction in the mere contemplation of the work's form and arrangement. So according to Kant, literature is about style, nothing else. So Kant is not interested in the message, yeah, that what counts in a work of art is form, aspects of form, that a writer must sit down and look at their style. What distinguishes literature from history, from sociology, from other social sciences, or other journalistic writing is the stylistic aspect. Yeah. So rather than desire to possess it, the audience wants to benefit from it personally. Yeah, because of the style. That when you get a work of art, it is style that matters. The way you construct the sentence, the way you touch the emotions, the way you choose words, the way you arrange, yeah, your plot. This is what matters in literature according to Immanuel Kant. Number two, universal but subjective appeal. The judgment of a beautiful literary work, while it's based on subjective feeling of pleasure, makes a universal claim that literature has a universal recognition, that you will always make a universal mark when you write a good work. When you write a good work. So that universal claim will always be there. Then number three, purposiveness without a purpose. A work of literature appears to have purposiveness. It seems to be designed perfectly for free play of imagination and understanding, yet it has no definite external purpose. So according to Kant, literature is art for art's sake. That literature, it is just beauty for beauty's sake. And that's why he's trying to say that there is nothing like education in literature. It's just beauty. Yeah, you should just enjoy the style and stop there. That a work of art is not supposed to express a message. Is not supposed. Okay, it may have a message, but our focus is, yeah, does it appeal to us? Do we enjoy it? And then it stops there. So the harmony of its form is perceived as if it were intentional, but it's not intended to teach a specific lesson. So according to Kant, literature is not meant for education. No, it is just for beauty. Art for art's sake. Art for art's sake. That is Kant. That is Immanuel Kant. That literature is just beauty for beauty's sake. Then Nietzsche, let's look at Nietzsche. So that's the picture of Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche is believed to be one of the fathers, actually the father of postmodernism. He lived in the 1890s, and he wrote 22 books. He published 22 books, and in one of his books, he criticized modernism. He did not like the modern age, the whole question of binaries, the question of central culture, saying that this culture is the most important and all of us must imitate. Friedrich Nietzsche did not like it, and he said a centralization of culture will actually cause wars. And he criticized the modern nation state, that the whole question of the modern state, according to him, is collective immorality. I will share some of his books for you to read. But Nietzsche made a great contribution to literature. He lived in the 1890s. In the 1890s, he came from Germany. And for Nietzsche, art was more truthful and life-affirming than traditional religion or philosophy. So for him, art is more truthful than philosophy and religion. He's one of the critics of modernism, as he rejected centralization of truth and the modern nation state. It is only it is only as an aesthetic phenomenon that existence and the world are eternally justified. That life is only justified in aesthetics, in literature. That literature makes life more meaningful. Yeah. So literature as a form of art helps humanity endure the tragic and absurd nature of life. According to Nietzsche, life is chaotic. Yeah. Life is absurdity. And it's only literature that enables human beings to endure the tragedy and absurdity of life. Yeah? For example, repulsive thoughts about existence are done away with when we read representations in works of art. And because life is chaotic, when we listen to music, it gives us order. It gives us some order. And so he classified art into Apollonian and Dionysian. So Apollonian, according to him, represents order, form, and rationality. For example, poetry. Poetry has an order because of the way it is constructed. And then Dionysian are all those genres that embody chaos, passion, and primal energy. For example, music and tragedy. According to him, great literature integrates both of them to achieve a greater impact. To achieve a greater impact. So what is art according to Nietzsche? Art is an expression of the will of power. Why do we write? We write to express the will of power. Literature is a manifestation of the fundamental drive for self-overcoming and excellence. That when we write works of art, is because we want excellence and we want to overcome ourselves. Yeah, we want to overcome ourselves and also we want to achieve excellence. Yeah. So literature, according to Nietzsche, in a way is a search for power. All writers and singers search for power. Look at people like Jalango. Yeah, Jalango. He just used to perform jokes. Yeah. Yeah. So artists are leaders. There's something Nestle is telling you here that most artists are leaders. Yeah. Most artists are leaders. You can see Jalango. Yeah. Now he's an MP. People like Diamond, very soon they will be somewhere. Look at somebody like Donald Trump. Yeah. He used to act. He used to be an actor. The president of, there is this current president of Ukraine. He used to act as Mr. President, yeah. Now he's the president, yeah. So art is an expression of the will of power. It is the manifestation, yeah. We are doing it because we seek and if you are seeking excellence, you are a leader. Leaders want excellence, yeah, and they will start directing others. So for the artist and the higher type, yeah, writing and creation are always to assert values, to expand one's influence, and express strength and individuality, challenging conventional norms. So for artists, that's what they want. They want to challenge conventional norms, to express individuality, identity, yeah, and to expand one's influence. So we write because you want to expand your influence. Yeah. Then number 3, perspectivism. Yeah. So Nietzsche held that there is no absolute or objective truth. According to Nietzsche, there is nothing like a truth which all of us must follow. Rather, all knowledge is shaped by individual perspectives. So literature does not, yeah, is not about expressing a single truth, but is about exploring diverse value systems, challenging established truth. So we are just expressing our diverse opinions. Writers express their diverse opinions. They don't express a single truth. And so you are allowed to challenge, to reflect on what writers write about. Then style and individuality. Nietzsche placed great importance on the author's unique voice and style. That every author should find their voice and style. Yeah. Like Dickens has his own style. So as a good writer, you must have your own style. Every great philosophy was the personal confession of its author, suggesting that a literary work's value lies in its authentic individual expression rather than conformity to a common good. So it's not about conforming to a common good, but individual expression. So a writer is expressing an individual opinion. A writer is expressing their individual opinion. Before I go to Harold Bloom, yes, what do you say about the two philosophers, Kant and Nietzsche? Yes, let me hear your opinion. Let me hear your opinion. Felix, what do you say about Kant and Nietzsche? I see Sheila has disappeared, but we are finishing. We just have 2 more, and we will be through. Yes, what do you think of? Or I finish before you comment, Felix.
Yes, if I look at that is Nietzsche's philosophy, can I call it approach towards literature?
Speak up, speak up.
When he's talking, yes, can you get me?
Yeah, I can get you. Speak up.
Yes. So if I look at that Nietzsche's work, very philosophical point of view in literature, talking about literature being like meant for, you know, the creativity of the youth, that is the literary scholars, or maybe acting, comedy, is it, what he's saying is towards the search for power. If I got you clearly,
Yes.
I can say, okay, there's an aspect of truth in it, which I can buy from that. is right. And then there's this other philosopher. I'm trying to today's my network is there's one who was talking about literature just being we should just listen to literature and enjoy the aesthetic value. That is the right thing, or the
Immanuel,
style, and not
Immanuel
look at
Kant.
the knowledge. Yes, Kent. I think I will differ with the Kent.
You will differ. Yes,
I,
continue.
I
Uh-huh.
because apart from the I say because literature number one there is a way that is form. We have the
Mm.
form and the content.
Yes.
Form is the way a piece of literature is portrayed in terms
Mm.
of language, which creates a particular mood, tone, and other things. That is the form, the way it is created.
Yes.
So, that what about the content? Because
Mm.
he's saying that we should just focus on the form, that just
Mm.
enjoy it for the purpose of it means there's a way in which it's putting it lighter. But majorly, literature has got the big aspect, which is the content, the message,
Mm.
or the thing we are saying, which must be focused. In fact, to me, the major focus should be on the content
Mm-hmm.
because literature is being used in addressing so many human challenges.
Mm.
If we focus on the way that we have got this novel talking about the effect of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb in
Yes.
Japan.
Mm.
This novel, I'm forgetting the title.
The Black Rain.
In the artist of the floating world,
Mm.
the one which is being done by high school learners
Mm.
currently. It
Mm.
focuses in the way in which it is written, the style, the language, and
Mm.
forget about the major effect of the major theme which is addressing, which is the effect of the bomb, which we
Mm.
can see up to today.
Mm.
Then we will be losing. There's an aspect of literature which we will not be getting. So, Kant's
Mm.
point of philosophy has some weaknesses.
Yes.
But is it? I'm forgetting the pronunciation. The second philosopher. Is it next? Let's
That's it.
let's let's say.
Mm.
Let's say I'll buy that there is a way in which if you look at the creativity in the that is with the playwright or even the novelist or the poet. For you to perform that, eh, act, entertain, and control a particular audience, then
Mm.
again it creates this power. I can buy that. We had
Mm.
three of them. I'm forgetting some because apart from that, the other human issue was something which I'm forgetting. But if I look at read, I think I can create more. Definitely, I can with the
Yeah, actually, Nietzsche was is a very brilliant philosopher. And the way he writes, this philosopher, like Nietzsche, the way he writes, he just writes aphorisms. There is nothing like a book with a flaw. No, he just thinks and comes up with aphorisms. They look like proverbs, eh? And they've been arranged in a book. I will share some of his works, and then you will see. But um, personally, I was also more impressed by Nietzsche. I think he was more insightful and thoughtful than Kant. Kant is famous, but he has many weaknesses, and I concur with you. You cannot just talk about art for art's sake. And later on, when African literature was now coming up, most African philosophers deconstructed. Okay, they really criticized Immanuel Kant, especially in Africa. We cannot talk about literature for its own sake. And Sachebe says that art for its own sake is a dog shit. Yeah, it's dog shit. So I also like what you have said. So let us finish, and then because our time is almost 2 minutes to the end of our time. So Harold Bloom, Bloom was famously against the school of resentment. One of his major tenet was focus on the aesthetic. So he was trying to build on the ideas of Immanuel Kant. According to Harold Bloom, literature should not be based on social realities like feminism, Marxism, post-structuralism, historicism, or history or whatever. He believed these schools inappropriately judge literature based on social, political, and moral criteria rather than its intrinsic aesthetic merit. Yeah. So according to Bloom, literature should just be on aesthetic merit, the style, the beauty, the emotions. Do you enjoy the work? That you should not focus on what? On social political issues in the society. And that's what he called the school of resentment. And I'm told, in fact, this is the canon upon which the Nobel Prize is based. That for a work of art to win a Nobel Prize, mostly they adopted the Harold Bloom's canon. Now, in that case, how can works from Africa therefore win? So the true value of literature lies in its ability to transcend time, time and speak the self, not its utility for social improvement. That literature should not be based on social improvement, but on aesthetic value, just on the beauty. So Bloom endorses Kant's concept on art for art's sake. That is, literature has to focus on aesthetic qualities rather than social issues. That is Harold Bloom. And then he talks about poetic influence as being antagonistic. So according to him, poetry is basically an imitation, and a new poet imitates the precursor, the one who comes before. So the new poet must intentionally misread or misprision, the precursor's work, creating a creative fiction that allows them to believe that the precursor's vision was incomplete. So that a new poet, when you criticize the old writer, you now become a better writer. That basically literature is just an imitation. A mentee trying to criticize the mentor. And that's how good writers are born, according to Harold Bloom. So according to Bloom, there is nothing like an original consciousness whereby you create something original. No, that little writing is basically imitation. And when you criticize the old writer, you become a better writer. If you just imitate the mentor, you become a slothful or poor writer. That is according to Bloom. Then he talks about the Western canon. According to Bloom, there is a Western body of literature, a Western body of literature, which stands out, and it's separate from other works of literature. And he praises people like Shakespeare, Dante, Cervantes, or Proust as the people who laid the foundation for the Western canon. That this canon possesses superior aesthetic greatness and unique imaginative power. That these are the things that that characterize the Western canon. That they have great aesthetic greatness. He argued that these works earned their place not through political selection, but through their persistent self-critical ability to challenge and revise their own precursors, thereby making readers know themselves better. And mostly these works he chooses, they focus on aesthetic qualities, not necessarily messages, because some of the Shakespearean messages are just about love and such things, but the style is very, very superior. So the purpose of reading the canon is for individual self-information and enlightenment, not academic or political correctness. That these works stand out not because of political messages, but just because of what? You enjoy the style and you enlighten yourself. And you don't read these works for academic purposes or political correctness. And that is what he meant by the Western canon. Greatness is demonstrated by strong misreading. For you to be a great writer, misread your mentor. That means criticize your mentor. When you criticize your mentor, it becomes a literary genius. But if you just imitate your mentor, you end up with a slothful work. Then Frantz Fanon, this is there are other black scholars, but I chose Frantz Fanon. So we should be able to read The Wretched of the Earth, and he came up with a number of tenets. And one of it is this one. The ultimate tenet in African literature is a revolution. That African literature should be revolutionary to support the struggle of Black people. And Black people have suffered slavery and colonialism, and therefore African literature must support the struggle, the revolutionary spirit of the Black race. So the writer must become an awakener of the people, joining the masses in the liberation movement. That is Frantz Fanon. I will share this book with you so that you read a few of the chapters. So this literature must express the heart of the people and become the tool for articulating and advancing new national consciousness. So don't rush to be an African writer unless you have read Frantz Fanon, yeah, Chinua Achebe, yeah, Aimé Césaire, yeah, Richard Wright. There are a number of scholars you need to read. And Frantz Fanon was among the first people to theorize about African literature. So to him, real literature must join the revolutionary struggle, a tool for articulating and advancing new national consciousness. But he did not support negritude. According to him, it is not about negritude. The new culture and the old culture must be hybridized, must be mixed, according to Frantz Fanon. Then he talks about creating national consciousness. Literature must contribute actively to creation of vibrant and authentic national culture that springs, from the fight for liberation rather than an elite detached cultural preservation. And he said that the fight for independence is a revolution, and the revolution is averse to custom. Revolution is averse to custom. As the people fight for independence, they are establishing new structures. And so he's not supporting all cultures. A national culture is not past African cultures. According to him, national culture is what the people, will want to promote for their own good after independence. And so for him, national culture is a conglomeration of the new and the old to make a hybrid culture. And literature must reflect that. So actually, he laid the foundation for hybridity. So period for renarration of the past. So literature should move past merely recalling the past and old legends. While this stage marks the turn toward one's people and return to tradition, the relationship with the indigenous culture remains superficial and viewed through a borrowed aestheticism. So he did not support negritude. National culture, according to him, is not African culture, but a mix of all elements that the African people select for the good of their nations. Revolutions are averse to custom, and the leaders who desire for a return to past traditions will be disappointed. I will share this book for you to read some aspects so that you understand Fanon and what he philosophized, what he theorized about African literature. Yes, so that is all I had for you today. So unless somebody has a question, you can now ask if you have a question. When you go to the Masomo portal, you'll find all the philosophers, including Longinas, and activities and the books you are supposed to read. Yes. Any question? It's already 7. And then I will share some books like this one, The Wretched of the Earth, I must share with you. A Man of the People, you need to read for you to see. And there are other books, but A Man of the People is one of the set texts for this particular chapter. Sheila, any question? Any comment?
I have no question, sir.
All right. Yeah, so I will share the video. I will share the video. Ruth has not attended today. I think Felix, we are still following up with your admission number. Once you get it, you will be able to access content. I think there is now week 2. There is also week 2, which has been uploaded. So you should go there. Sheila, you can go there and start. Sheila, you can fill the attendance because you can access the portal. Use that attendance. Use that attendance link. If it doesn't work, tell me. I will share another link so that you, not Sheila. Sheila should be able to mark the attendance. Felix, very soon utaingia. Ruth, I don't know where she is. I sent her a message. She has not replied, but we wish her the best. So you have no question? Let me end so that we get the video. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Yes.